In this juncture, I'm going to talk about carbonate chemistry in seawater and the impacts of it. Yeah, beginning of an industrial era, anthropogenic emissions of carbon dioxide that causes major impacts in the environment. After the industrial era begins, it's about 40% of the carbon dioxide that has been liberated into the Earth atmosphere. These emissions majorly of fossil fuel burning to the lesser extent of manufacturing of cement, which causes the radiative forcing of Earth's climate, also which causes the ocean acidification in terms of hydrogen ion concentration. Valentino Di Santo in the year 2019 has reported the atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration is about 400 ppm. It is increasing day by day all over the world. About 30% of carbon dioxide emission which will be dissolved into the ocean. In carbon dioxide, when carbon dioxide contacts with seawater, which reduces the pH in carbonate ion concentration, and also has the impact of saturation states of carbon dioxide and bicarbonate ions. This can be termed as in a chemical way. It can be termed as ocean acidification. There are two major factors which also impacts the ocean acidification in terms of carbon dioxide diffusion into the seawater. The first one is thermohaline circulation, and also the biological pump, which has been on the seawater surface in terms of the primary producers. For example, phytoplankton, which contributes in the carbonate system very much. So ocean acidification all along the way, it contributes in various, it organizes various scientific disciplines such as chemistry, geology, biochemistry, oceanography, and ecology, etc. So a typical carbon cycle that has been represented over here. So there are several carbon stores in the environment. The first one is atmospheric carbon store. That has been when fuel is burned, the carbon dioxide will be emitted or liberated. That will be stored over there. And then biosphere carbon store. Each and every plant that will consume carbon dioxide and generates its own food by means of sunlight, by taking the sunlight. So obviously, it will the oxygen will be liberated in terms of the respiration of the plants on the land. So the taken up carbon dioxide will be stored as a carbon store, that is biomass on the biosphere carbon store. Where in the case of lithosphere carbon store, it contributes for coal, oil, gas, and also calcium in the form of calcium carbonate, limestone, and dolomite. Where in the case of ocean carbon store, the carbon dioxide will be diffused onto the surface of ocean, and that will be taken up by the phytoplankton, and the phytoplankton will be taken up by zooplankton, and then larger animals. The cycle will goes on. If in the case of any dead or anything happen like that, that will be sedimented as a ocean sediment that will be deposited onto the ocean at depths. That will also deposited as marine deposits. That will be a huge carbon store of carbon cycle. The typical seawater contains several inorganic elements in terms of hydrogen, oxygen, chlorine, sodium, magnesium, sulfate, calcium, and potassium. These can be termed as major compounds, since the amount of this particular compounds will be much in seawater in the order of hydrogen to potassium. And the minor compounds which contributes bromine, boron, carbon, nitrogen, strontium, and silicon, and some other trace elements as well in seawater. So there you can see the seawater contains about 96.5% of water, and the remaining 3.5% is termed as salt. So in this 3.5%, it's about 55% of chloride, and then followed by sodium 30.6%, and then sulfate, and calcium, potassium, and magnesium, and then amino compounds. So of course, we all know seawater is unique among natural waters. It's about the various acid and base species of about 0.7% with carbonic acid and boric acid species predominating. So this carbonic acid will be, the when carbon dioxide contacts with seawater surface, which will form carbonic acid. That will be again speciation takes place in terms of H+ and carbonate ion. That will be explained in a detailed way in the following slides. Yes, a carbonate system are key. One of the major, most important components of the chemical perspective of oceanography is carbonate system. That is because primarily carbonate system controls the acidity of seawater, because of carbonate ion, acts as a governor for the carbon cycle. That is why it is termed as a key factor in oceanography. The carbonate system of the ocean plays a key role in controlling the pressure of carbon dioxide as well as the atmospheric carbon dioxide pressure. Since 30% of carbon dioxide will be sink in the ocean, so that the major way of carbon sink is ocean, so that this much amount of carbon dioxide will be termed over there. That is why the pressure and salinity is a key factor over there. There are three main components in carbonate chemistry of seawater. The first one is free aqueous carbon dioxide, and then bicarbonate ion, and then carbonate ion. So among these three, the bicarbonate ion contributes majorly of about more than 85%. So it also depends on bicarbonate ion majorly. So as we are stating this, when atmospheric carbon dioxide when contact with surface of the ocean, that will be reacting with water of sea. So the formation of carbonic acid will be there, H2CO3, and this will be ionized into H+ and bicarbonate ion, the hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion. So again, in the case of calcium carbonate, where the skeleton and shells of marine animals, that will be made up of calcium carbonate, where the calcium carbonate, this hydrogen will be leaching out those calcium carbonate in terms of Ca2+ and CO3 2-. So this skeletons of the calcium carbonate of will be leached H+ and CO3. So this H+ and CO3 again form bicarbonate ion, and this is a continuous cycle since carbon dioxide will be in contact with marine environment frequently. So this is what we were discussing just in the last slide. In calcium carbonate, that will be Ca2+ and CO3 2-, and the formation of H+, and this carbonate will be reacting with this H+, again the formation of, it's a reversible reaction by carbonate, and it will be continuing. So the ocean acidification will increase the pressure of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and lower the hydrogen ion concentration, lower the pH. Of course, decrease the availability of CO3 2+. That is because of this H+ again will be reacting with CO3 2- to form carbonic acid again. And lower saturation state of calcium carbonate in cells. And some essential parameters over there. These are total carbon dioxide and then total alkalinity. The first one is total carbon dioxide content. That is because we need to know the amount of carbon dioxide that has been dissolved over there. Then only we can identify, or we can control the ionic system. So the total carbon dioxide is nothing but the addition of the amount of the carbon dioxide and then formed bicarbonate and then formed carbonate ion. Total alkalinity is a term which can be described in the charge balance of the following that can be termed over here. the addition of bicarbonate, concentration of bicarbonate ion and then carbonate ion, and of course the hydroxyl ion that will be from water molecule H plus OH minus, and then since we are here we are dealing with alkalinity, the H plus will be subtracted, and then the minor compounds will also be added. So there are three major mineral phases of carbonate. First one is aragonite, second one is calcite, and then the third one is magnesium calcite. Both aragonite and calcite are naturally occurring polymorphs, and where in the case of magnesium calcite, magnesium ion will be inserted in calcite morphology. So these are the pictorial representations of aragonite and calcite. Of course, the magnesium calcite. This magnesium calcite will be made up of magnesium ion in the crystal lattice of calcite. So the saturation of calcium carbonate, that will be that is represented over there in the equation. So in this case, there is a solubility product of calcite or aragonite is the two major forms of calcium carbonate in the at the in situ conditions of temperature, salinity, and pressure, where the carbon dioxide contact with the seawater. Of course, the values of this solubility product, that is greater than 1, which signifies the supersaturation. The term over there can be called as supersaturation. If in the case of less than 1, which signifies the saturation, not supersaturation. So the greater depth at which dissolution impacts become noticeable in terms as lycoline, a sedimentary property. We'll come to this next. The composition, of course, the calcite composition we need to talk about while we are talking about the chemistry of carbonate in seawater. The composition of the calcite composition depth, that is CCD, can be termed as the depth at which the rate of carbonate accumulation equals the rate of carbonate dissolution. You can see in the picture over here, CCD, carbonate composition depth. These parts are called the rates of carbonate accumulations. Of course, the calcite composition maintains the balance of Ca2 plus and CO3 2 minus, and which will be fluxing into the ocean, and calcium carbonate barrier fluxes in the marine sediments. So this is the natural process where the weathering of calcium carbonate and the silicate rocks. So where the need of calcium carbonate ion, the weathering of calcium rock will take place. In terms of calcium carbonate, that will be ionized into Ca2 plus and CO3 2 minus. Which will be the CO3 2 minus from this weathering of calcium carbonate rock, that will be reacting with the H plus ion that was formed from the atmospheric carbon dioxide over there. So again, the carbonic acid formation was there, and then in terms of weathering of rocks, CO3 2 minus will be reacting with H plus ions, and which will form bicarbonate ion as end product. So that is why it is more than 85% of carbonate system. So there are certain thermodynamic parameters that are termed over here. The total dissolved organic carbon, that is TCO2, and the total alkalinity. And then the concentration of CO2, the amount of bicarbonate, and then the amount of carbonate ion, and then the amount of H plus. So the thermodynamic parameter that is represented over here, and the graph has been drawn between total alkalinity of seawater and then the organic carbon dioxide. So here the terms, the formation of calcium carbonate, and then of course the dissolution of it, photosynthesis, and then respiration respiration also takes place in utilizing carbon dioxide and then liberating oxygen into the atmosphere. CO2 release and CO2 inversion also contacted over here. So the temperature and salinity are the major factors in setting the carbonate chemistry system in a system at the surface of ocean. For example, seawater is less soluble at high temperatures, which leading to the outgassing to the liberation of total carbon dioxide that will be increased in the environment. Seawater uptake takes place predominantly in colder waters. And of course, that is why the total carbon dioxide will be higher over there. Of course, the precipitation and the dissolution when calcium CO2 plus ions which will be reacting with bicarbonate ion, which will form calcium carbonate, and then the formation of carbon dioxide. So, according to this equation, the formation of calcium carbonate by reacting by bicarbonate ion and calcium ion, which will also generate carbon dioxide. 1 mole of carbon dioxide when 1 mole of calcium carbonate formation. The calcium carbonate production in the surface of ocean under it is transport to the depth of ocean tend to increase atmospheric CO2. This process represents one component of ocean's biological carbon pump. So the biological carbon pump contributes majorly in contact in communication with the aspects of carbonate chemistry. So there you can see the pictorial representation of biological pump, where carbon dioxide will be from the atmosphere when contact with the ocean. The phytoplankton will takes it up, and then it will generate sugar converts. It will converts for food for it by using sunlight, like what plants on the land doing producing sugars for themselves. And of course, the respiration of oxygen will be there, and which will be liberated to the environment. And this phytoplankton will be consumed by zooplankton, and then that will be for further larger animals that will be consumed. And then, of course, the zooplankton and then the consumers will liberate carbon dioxide to the atmosphere by respiration. And these all three, if in the case of death will happen, that will be consumed by bacteria, and that will be deposited as a organic carbon in the environment, and of course the marine sediment. Of course, the changes in the strength of the biological pump in the past have modulated the total carbon dioxide concentration by inference the acidity at the surface, and the ocean's biological pump captures more carbon than expected. This has been reported by Ken Bussler et al. In the year 2020. So, some corals and ocean acidification. So, the impact of carbonate ion plays a major role in the ocean acidification. So, some pictures of beautiful corals over there. A study from Western Australian University in the year 2019, they have reported the world's coral reef is under tremendous threat from ocean acidification, with many corals unable to adapt to the condition. That is, that much of amount of pressure we are putting to the marine environment, since the condition that is not adaptable, and it is not survivable in the marine environment in terms of pH. For example, the human blood pH ranges between 7.35 and 7.45. Even a drop in the blood pH of about 0.1 to 0.3 can cause seizures, comas, and even it leads to death. So just imagine then how the marine environment, organisms and animals will be affected themselves, and then it's very hard to survive over there. So in a study, it has been reported, studies of the coral Aquilina, Patagonia, shows the figure A, which shows the normal coral colony. And then when the acidification takes place, The picture B shows the esterification. When esterified, the coral, the reaction of coral will be like this of Aquilina Patagonia. This particular animal elongated its polyform. There are small tentacles. There you can see the small tentacles of it to adopt the conditions to grab the nutrients from the environment. When the esterification has been stopped, it's getting back to normal. That can be shown in that is shown in figure C. There you can see. In the impacts, the first one is the coral impact of ocean acidification. The second one is the calcium carbonate leaching from the shell, and there you can see the shell will be made up. The shell is made up of calcium carbonate. Because of the ocean acidification, the calcium carbonate will takes leaching, that is of Ca2 plus and CO32 minus. Yeah, before the industrial era, about 98% of coral reefs were surrounded by water with ideal levels of aragonite, that is of calcium carbonate. But today the proportion is less than half. Just imagine how much the ocean is acidified right now. A study reported from CBS found that climate change has caused 80% decrease in the new coral in the GBR, further validating that coral reefs are threatened by climate change and its reciprocities. And then it also impacts the fisheries. At elevated carbon dioxide, which causes the natural cues the animals will not react to the natural cues, and which of course due to the unadaptable conditions, it will be reacting to the unnatural cues. Rising CO2 levels are turning the world's ocean acidic, affecting marine life hugely. That is because the adaptability is very much harder over there. And this picture has been, GFF has released this picture. There you can see high carbon emissions and reduced carbon emissions. So in reduced carbon emissions, there you can see the cycle will be very much adaptable, which means it's occurred naturally. The carbonic acid, when carbonic acid goes to hydrocarbon, naturally the carbonic acid will be formed, and then which will be forming H plus and then bicarbonate ions. The bicarbonate ions again will form the carbonate ion, and that will be captured by the calcium that will be reacting with the calcium of weathering rocks. So the calcium carbonate will be formed over there. So the amount of hydrogen ion will be much in terms of carbon sink. When the more carbon dioxide generation, it is quite difficult to maintain this much of sustainability when deals with the environment and the marine environment. Yeah, of course, conclusion part. The acidification of marine environment paired up with other climate impacts like warming waters, deoxygenation, melting of ice, and coastal erosion, which pose a real threat to the survival of the marine species. Ocean acidification is particularly detrimental to species that build their skeletons and shells from calcium carbonate, like, for example, clams, mussels, crabs, phytoplankton, and corals, and that constitute the bottom of the food chain. So, of course, if it is so, the survival of the other animals will be a question mark. So, the acidification reduces the availability of carbonate ions in ocean water, which provide the building blocks of these organisms, make sure that shells and skeletons significantly reducing the chances of their offspring to survive. So sequestration. So sequestration is a term that is the capture of carbon dioxide, and it can be further further utilized, or it can be sequestrized. For example, kelp, which is a brown algae, which takes carbon dioxide via photosynthesis, and then the detritus of this kelp floats over sea, and then it will be sinks. And the respiration of this, the photosynthesis takes place in terms of carbon dioxide capture. So the carbon dioxide will be stored over there as a biomass, and which will be floated, and it will be synced and then stored as a carbon store in the marine environment. So of course, we are exerting a massive influence in the oceans with the unpredictable and the potentially catastrophic consequences if we continue to pollute by all means of carbon pollution to the environment. It should be cut off immediately. And it is necessary to educate everyone to aware the carbon footprint and the impacts of it. And of course, the strict relevant regulation should be made by the should be made by the government to control the carbon footprint. Of course, reducing the consumption of carbon-oriented energy stores, which will of course reduce the carbon footprint. So there are certain positive impacts on COVID pandemic that has happened in this particular period. In 2020, the experts have predicted about 36.8 billion tons of carbon dioxide will be liberated to the atmosphere from the industrial side. According to a report, about 5% of the carbon dioxide will be less due to pandemic, due to COVID pandemic. So it is about 2.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide liberation to the environment, which is about 31 billion tons. So there you can see the cycle of carbon emission to the environment of in a certain decade periods. So government have initiated certain things. The major reef foundations in India are restricted to the Gulf of Mannar, Park Bay, Gulf of Kutch, and Andaman Nicobar Islands and the Lakshadweep Islands. While the Lakshadweep reefs are atolls, the others are fringing reefs. ZSI, with the help of Gujarat Forest Department, had initiated for the first time a process that can be that is a term which can be restored of coral reefs using biorock or mineral acceleration technology. Biorock is a structure that was installed on one nautical mile of the Mithapur coast in the Gulf of Kutch on very recently on January 19, 2020 by Government of India. Biorock, it is a new term that is which is dealing with electrochemistry when the substance formed by electroaccumulation of minerals which is dissolved in seawater on steel structures, where the electrochemistry point of things was there. And this is it. These are the infrastructure facility that has been available in our department. Kindly contact a concerned person to utilize all these things. And thanks for the opportunity. I'm very much thankful to the management of Satyabhama Institute of Science and Technology and the Director Research, ma'am, HOD sir, and then faculties of Center for Ocean Research for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. If anything, I will take.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Participants, if you have any questions or queries regarding the topic, you can put it in the chat box, or else you can directly interact with the speaker. One participant has raised his hand, sir. I will unmute.
Yeah.
Thank you, Baalamurugan. You give a very wonderful talk. It is audible, my voice?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. It is wonderful talk, and then you made a presentation is very wonderful graphical representation. I have two questions from you. Okay.
Yes,
the first one is who is responsible for carbon source in the marine environment? The first one. The second one will be the carbon sequestration done by what? Atmospheric and ocean interaction more or biological form? These two questions I want to be asked to you.
Yes, sir. Firstly, carbon dioxide liberation, by all means, the major part of carbon dioxide liberation will be from the industry. And of course, in certain cases, the unavoidable firing, and then of course, the deforestation and the firing of forests and the burning of fossil fuels that causes the major impacts in the environment in terms of liberation of carbon dioxide. The industries plays a major role in the liberation of carbon dioxide. And then coming to the second one, so can you repeat the question, please?
Who is responsible for the carbon sequestration? That is ARC interaction or more or biological pump? Carbon
According to the
sequestration.
yes sir, yes sir. It's a combination of it's a close relative cycles in which first in the case of sequestration of it's a chain kind of reaction over there. When carbon dioxide contact with the marine environment, the marine primary producers will take it up, and then which will be converted which will be take it up, and further the phytoplankton will be taken up by the zooplanktons, and then the larger animals will take it up. It's a chain thing. So obviously this will contribute to the carbon sequestration much. And in nowadays, apart from marine environment, the researchers has developed many things to sequestrate carbon dioxide, where in the case of the people are utilizing industrial byproducts to sequestrate carbon dioxide. For example, steel slag and fly ash, those are major quantities that has been raised solid waste. So there are calcium oxide. So calcium oxide plus carbon dioxide will gives you calcium carbonate that will be stored over there, and it can be further utilized if we need the energy of carbon. So these kind of researches are also there, and the researchers are also developing nowadays.
I think I understood that whatever you are saying, but my point of view is I'm just saying it's fine. It is audible.
Yes sir, please. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my point of view that biological pump or ARC interaction. So the biological pump is provided the more resources for the carbon in the
yes sir,
deep sea, because deep sea we doesn't know that how much carbon is sequestered in the deep sea. So the current research of my lab and then people are working in carbon sequestration, but the problem is that only we are concentrating on carbon sequestration. We are forgot to follow the carbon mineralization or remineralization. Okay.
Yes,
so that is the important thing. We doesn't understand the deep sea until today. Not only in India, it is always towards the world. Okay, because we used to work with that Norwegian Institute of Water Resource with Dr. Richard Ballarby. I hope you know his name.
Yes.
Yeah, Richard and myself, we are working together with the project in Southern Ocean and Indian Ocean. So we are trying to make that link with the carbon mineralization and remineralization by organisms in the deep sea. But in case of in the shallower water, we can easily find out that the carbon sequestration rate. But unfortunately, due to the movement and then the rate of deposition, it is also be a factor. That is the reason still the carbon sequestration is not end up with that.
Yes, exactly.
So the point is, I hope yesterday talk with Polygate, and then people are now started with working with Polygate and then other groups, particularly on Benthy groups, who is taking more responsible on remineralization part, because based on our study, still it is not published. It is in communicated to Nature scientific report. So that one is what we are suggesting, that just a suggestion, not for the exact result. What we are suggesting, the carbon remineralization rate is more than what the sequestration is there. So that is the reason the entire system is prolongedly working in the deep sea, because the your light
Since the
penetration
environmental
is
factors also affecting the remineralization process. So that thing will also happening over there, so that the remineralization of the carbon dioxide will be much. That is as per my understanding in a report.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
But that should be in shallow water. It is fine. Environmental factor is the more important in the shallow water, because the light penetration is not there in the deep sea. So over there, the environmental factor things is very less, except the pressure. Okay, so
Yes,
except the pressure, deep sea is not much varied in the environmental factor. So as per our study, we have sampling in 8,000 meter in Indian Ocean. Bay of Bengal, we have 4,400 nearly. So deep sea is totally different in the sequestration, and then the utilization of carbon also very less. That is the reason the deep sea is we found more carbon over there. Whatever you showed in the slide, the kelp, it can move to the float in the water, and then it will be sink in one or the other day, and it will be created. But in the meantime, for example, 100% is sinking is there. So if the sinking will be reduced, only 1% to reach in the bottom. Whatever our study is making confirm with that, because we are doing with the colored material to sinking rate in the deep sea. After we got in nearly 392 days to settle down in 1,284 meters in Arabian Sea, because Arabian Sea we choose because only the reason the Arabian Sea environment is more calm than Bay of Bengal. So it will be take almost 1 year, more than 1 year. So that is also one of the reason I'm very happy with that to receive the talk from carbon chemistry in this thing. Hope we will meet one day. I will discuss with Inmakandan sir, and then we will meet one day, and then we will discuss about whatever it is possible.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
So,
You're very much welcome, sir. Yes.
Yeah, thank
Yes,
you,
we'll have
Baalamurugan.
talk. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. One more question is there from the participant Ramya, sir.
Okay, please.
Biorock accumulates minerals as you said, but how it reduces the carbonate in water?
Can you repeat? Shall I see? 1 second.
Yes, sir. If you want, I will repeat again also, sir.
Yeah, actually, the biorocks will be ionized into Ca2 plus and then CO3 minus. Here, this is the natural process where, in the case of imbalance in the marine environment, this will take place. But right now, the ocean acidification is much, so that all the biorocks will be the accumulation will be ionized, and then it will be it will be adjusting the pH, marine pH lesser than what we are what the acidification is. So the acidification is much. All the biorocks will be ionized, and then which will be stabilizing the marine environment, so that the much acidification, the higher production of Ca2 plus and CO3 minus from the biorocks.
Thank you, sir. I hope so Ramya would have understood. Any other questions? There are compliments from the participants, sir, that it is an informative presentation.
Of course, there is another thing. Yeah, of course, Ms. Ramya, pH is due to carbonic acid only, but not due to mineral. Yes, it is right. Anything else?
Any other questions from the participants? No questions, sir. Can we wind up the session, sir?
Yeah, if there is no further questions, we can wind up the session.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you once again. Thanks for the patient listening.